Let me bring up my intro. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Felice. I'm the Director of Point of Contact Gallery at Syracuse University. I'd like to start this evening by thanking the College of Arts and Sciences, as well as the Coalition of Museum and Art Centers at Syracuse University, who support our programs year after year, helping us bring programs like SUMART to you. SUMART is a yearly community summer arts exhibition Point of Contact produces in partnership with the DAP CNY's Public Arts Task Force. So if you're interested in becoming more involved with their organization, our gallery assistant Sheridan will drop some contact information in the chat. Our artist this evening is Melquea Smith, and we're delighted to welcome her as our final artist of the Summer 2020 series. Melquea Smith is a professional illustrator pursuing a career in illustrating books for children and children's media. As a certified kid at heart, her work specializes in anthropomorphic animals. Smith's work immerses viewers in a colorful realm, sparks connections with others, and fosters conversation about the community surrounding them. Her goal is to show Black girls and women that it's fun to be weird, and creativity and imagination is one of the many valid ways to express oneself. Color, whimsy, and strong storytelling excite Smith. She loves to bring out the childlike wonder in adults. While doing so, she encourages kids to harness the magic around them and to not let the cynicism of the world keep them down. So thank you and welcome, Melquea.
Hey, everybody. I guess I'm going to start this artist talk talking a little bit about myself. And I made sure to type everything I wanted to type. Because I was just like, oh man, how am I going to do this? So
if it makes you feel any better, when I was first hired, and Terry can confirm this, she told me not to forget to introduce myself when I started talking at the first reception, and I forgot to introduce myself. So nobody knew who I was, and I just started yelling at everyone. So,
and I'm like, oh, this is someone important, I'll just listen.
So you are 800% more prepared than I was. So.
I'm going to get started. Let's see. So I guess we're going to talk about how I got started. As a kid, I always loved cartoons. I loved cartoons, movies, video games, you name it. And honestly, it has not changed. And as an adult, I love children's media even more. I always drew in school, particularly animal people. And just like my love of kids media, it hasn't stopped. It probably is never going to stop. In high school, I wanted to major in animation and double minor in theater and illustration at a private school. But reality set in, joke's on me. My grades weren't all that great, and I couldn't afford most schools, and so I went to a community college in Herkimer. Long story short, I failed out of college, hated myself just a little bit. I got a job, and I learned the value of time management. And that was actually taught by a lot of my lovely friends at Chipotle. And I eventually went back to college. I graduated Onondaga Community College with a 4.0 and was happily ever after. Now what? Well, I started teaching myself marketing. I learned from different non-art related influencers on YouTube, like Pat Flynn and Roberto Blake. I had a desire of wanting to create YouTube videos, teaching what I knew about illustration. I taught myself how to record and edit video and sound. I learned the ins and outs of buying, hosting, maintaining a website and a social media presence and a shop. I started showing at conventions, marketing and selling my artwork, and I was going to do the independent artist route. So after about 3 years of doing that, I realized I was getting really burnt out and really exhausted. So last year, I saw a video on YouTube called 11 Social Media Habits That Hurt Your Art Career, and that caused a hard pivot with my work. I realized that all these skills I learned were great, but they weren't sustainable trying to do everything at once. I was doing a YouTube, I had social media such as Instagram, Facebook, I think Twitter at the time. I was maintaining an email list and I was going to conventions and doing all of that by myself. But I realized I had to drill down and focus on where I wanted to go. This led me on to my first mentorship in an online art school called Oatley Academy, and honestly, it changed my life. After taking that course on social media and how to format your social media to where you want your future to be, I enrolled in my current course that I'm in called Painting Drama, and I'm learning the nitty-gritty of storytelling, composition, and color. And that brings me to what we're doing today. So I'll be working on a homework assignment for my composition final. So I figured, hey, let's do a couple of things together at the same time so I cannot be late with my deadline as well as
that's time management, right? That's good time
oh my
management
gosh.
skills.
I've honestly been putting it off for so long, honestly, because it's like I knew it was my composition final. So it was like, but at the same time, I'm like, I need to get started.
Well, the pressure's on because now we're all watching you do your homework.
This will be fun. This will be fun though. So actually, let me see if I can. So what I'm doing right now, and I'm going to do a quick screen share. Boop. All right. We're going to hop over. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing a character design for my composition final. It's a prompt from a storybook that a friend of mine is actually writing, and she's writing a book called Our New Normal, and she wanted to write her name is Maggie Bristol. She's amazing. She's the sweetest person on the planet, and she's writing a book about how can she explain PTSD to her toddler son, and why is dad different compared to other dads. So this book it's so cute, but little dragon, one of the main characters, is so sad throughout like 60% of the book. But so I'm trying to figure out what makes this character likable and sad and also really sweet at the same time. So right now, this was my current exploration, and actually I'll show what I did before. So this, let me get over here. This was my exploration of different dragon types. And I can move this over. Oop, so it can be a little bit bigger. And I'll scooch this out the way. So this is all my little dragon ideas of just trying to figure out how can I get the essence of this cute little bundle of scales. And I'm just trying to, and all these little sad looks. I'm just so sad. I usually don't draw super sad, but I really, I wanted to use this book as a way for me to explore emotion, especially considering that most of my work is super happy-go-lucky. I wanted to explore the widest range of emotions of anger, sadness, and just absolute devastation.
So I know you have a book, right? So when you're working, I know this is homework, but when you're starting from point A, if you will, are you always kind of going through each character and trying out different emotions and expressions and feelings, or is this unique to what you're working on now?
It's actually unique to what I'm working on now and what I'll be working on in the future too. With my one-off illustrations, this was especially prior to just me painting a painting or painting something. For this particular one, especially for picture book illustration, character design, I have to explore the wide range of emotions, because what I want to do is I want to break into publishing, but after I break into publishing, like working with, an actual publisher that pays me to illustrate picture books, I want to actually move into animation. So this is kind of doing two things at the same time while honoring the picture book format. But I know that animation, especially doing character designs and different things with that, it takes a lot of exploring a character and how they turn around. Like, how does a character move in space? How do their legs work? How do their little arms work? How can an animator look at a character and figure out like how their fingers move? There's so many little components in there.
So when you're doing this too, are you always sketching on paper first? Do you prefer to work digitally? Like where is your most comfortable starting point, if you will?
I'm tradigital.
Yep.
Okay. So I work in paper. I work in, I've actually figured out I can do paper, charcoal, inks, just crappy computer paper. And actually the first or the finalization of Little Dragon, for the most part, finalization was in my sketchbook with my favorite pencil. And yeah, I can do it with pencil. And sometimes I realize that like working in pencil or pen on just regular cheap paper is so much easier than doing it digital, because I always want to make it perfect digitally. So it's like, if I can't break through the idea digitally, I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I need to try something different. And then I'll get like some printer paper or something and just work on it that way.
Okay.
So that's pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much how I get started. And
That's
it
your
really,
flow.
it's fluid. Yeah. It
Yeah.
depends on how I'm feeling and what's going on and how that works. I'm pretty loose with that.
Also, by the way, I'm going to talk a lot because I'm the moderator, but
Yes.
everyone is more than welcome to ask as many questions as they like here.
You
We have
bet.
a relatively small group. I don't want to say small,
So
but
intimate.
intimate and close knit. We're all friends here. So if you all have any questions or comments that you want to, feel free to turn your microphones off, speak up. I don't like to hear myself talk that much, so. So I know that you draw like a lot of your inspiration from video games and gaming culture. Is there a specific developer or line of games specifically that you draw like your aesthetic from or inspiration? I have my own opinions on what I see in your work, but I'm going to let you talk first.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm a Nintendo Sega girl all the way. I love Nintendo and Sega. Sonic the Hedgehog is the real MVP. And actually I don't know, I totally should have put him up there, but Spyro the Dragon too was definitely a big influence in my childhood as well. I think, interestingly enough, there was a style of drawing or style of like finishing or rendering called cell shading, which is like the opposite of what I do. So it's like if you see like anime or like anime where it's just like really crisp lines, really flat like paint or color. That's kind of where the cell shading was at. And I could never do line art that was as crisp and clean. And so what ended up happening was I was like, I can't do this. So I ended up developing my own like way of doing it. And I said, you know what? Why don't I go the painterly route? So I wanted to go painterly. And, I said, I can't do lines. I can't make like straight, crisp, clean lines. So why don't I just remove the lines? And that's what opened the floodgates for my art. And I was like, oh, good, awesome, I got this.
I was actually going to say I see Nintendo in your work 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, for sure.
I love Super Mario. That's like.
Are you thinking about a story when you're discovering that character or exploring that character?
Yeah, for Little Dragon, thank goodness there was a story already included with them. So I was able to kind of pull from the text and say, okay, well, how does Little Dragon feel? What can I, how can I put myself in their shoes or their scales? And what can I, pull from why this is happening? And the story, the super quickest way the story goes is that Little Dragon has practiced super hard for band practice. Little Dragon's able to finally head the Dragon Scale band, and Big Dragon's there. But then Little Dragon comes up, he looks up, or they look up, and Big Dragon's not there anymore. And so it's this. And then there's a reason why Big Dragon's not there. And because of Big Dragon's PTSD and the fact that, crowds make them very uncomfortable, and loud noises scare Big Dragon. And it's pretty much like a conversation of why Big Dragon is different, and sometimes certain things that, you know, like going to a school play or something like that, just it just won't work with Big Dragon because it's super uncomfortable and it brings them back into a really dark and scary place. So that's kind of the conversation that they have in the book. And it's kind of like the culmination of all of that. So now I'm thinking, okay, so Little Dragon is sad for the entirety of the book. I think Little Dragon's probably going to smile like 2 times in 32 pages. And but it's something that needs to be shared because, you know, there's a lot of things that make you know, people different, and there's a lot of things that we have to explain to, you know, our next generation of like, yeah, sometimes these things aren't, you know, sometimes you know, you can't, or like our expectations for people have to be different, and we have to like manage that. So I'm thinking of like Little Dragon's like sadness, and also I'm also explaining, I'm trying to think of like how other reactions and other things, just to kind of get a bigger breadth and depth of what Little Dragon would look like. And also Little Dragon stuffy, little stuffed animal.
So, I mean, your book that, aside from this one, unfortunately, I haven't read it. I'm so sorry. So
that's okay.
what was the content of that specifically? Was it kind of tackling, you know, something that's a little bit more of a difficult topic for kids, or was it like, how does it kind of fit into this? Is it
So actually, Awakening is a completely different type of book. It's a book for artists and for creatives. And I pretty much talk about all the struggles and problems I have with creating art and what I do to overcome them. So it's a completely, and it's an art book. And I own like a lot of art books, but I never see, I see artists talk about their process, but I never see artists talk about like what's going on in their head, like their mental process.
there it is. Madison has it.
Ah!
Here it is. Beautiful.
There we go.
So is there a like genre of storytelling that you find you're kind of gravitating towards? I mean, these books seem to be, or these stories rather, they seem to be very different from one another.
Yeah, I think I think I'm starting to gravitate towards like really sugary sweet stories. But I think what I want, I've been really thinking about this, and I've been doing a lot of research in publishing and a lot of research in animation, and I know there are two completely different like completely different industries. But the thing I always notice is that there's way too much overlap for them to be completely different industries. So you know, I see what animation's doing, and I see what they're coming up with, and I see what publishing's doing, and I know publishing has like a different pace and a different, I guess, style, so to say. And I think what the kinds of stories that I want to do are things that are a little more taboo. I've been throwing ideas out in my head of like, I have no idea how I'm going to write them, by the way, but I want things that are things that I notice that are the status quo. Like when I read picture books, and I read a ton of them, a lot of characters live in suburbs. They live in houses. They live in places with gardens. They live in different areas that doesn't show the full spectrum of people and where they live. And so I was like, well, what would we do if we had a kid and their experiences living in an apartment, or a kid living in a homeless shelter with their mom or their dad? Like, how would that, and I have no idea how I would write that, and I have no idea how I could make that, in air quotes, accessible for kids. I do feel like sometimes some stories shouldn't have to morph to be accessible to kids.
That makes sense. I understand.
You know, yeah, and it's hard to explain, but it's like I feel like
It's almost
sometimes,
like we're trained to think that it's like not okay to talk about these things.
yeah, or it's super hard to talk about these things. Like, how can you explain that, you know, one of your classmates is homeless?
Right.
But
Yeah.
you know, there's got to be a way. There's a subreddit called like explain it to me as if I'm 5 for like super tough topics. So if you can explain rocket science to an adult as if they're 5 years old, then we can explain, you know, difficult
Homelessness
situations.
to
Yeah,
to a kid. Yeah.
of course, and keep it accessible. And it's a little difficult though because we always want to have like happy endings. Like I always want to have happy endings and stories, but it's sometimes, you know, so I'm navigating that, but I'm thinking that the type of stories I want to write are a little more taboo, considering uh, the type of stories that we do have. But yeah,
Well,
we'll see.
I feel like I don't want to say now is the time, but I feel like society is becoming more open and acknowledging that yes, we need to do better,
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledging many different situations and lifestyles. Like I honestly, hearing you talk, and I'm like thinking about the cartoons and stories that I read when I was a kid. I don't remember a single one that tackled, you know, really difficult topics like that. And then we
I think,
grow up to be
yeah.
these adults that have these like ideals of what your life should look like.
Mm-hmm.
We wonder why, right?
Because
Yeah.
also there's kids with all kinds of experiences. A lot
Mhm.
of children that we have in these programs at La Casita have lived through experiences that are definitely not the suburb type of experience, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of times they react more, they get more excited or more, more engaged in stories that they can relate to about what to them, and the stories that they can share about their own, and maybe not so much the really, but there's that age group, like between middle school, you know, high school, that they're not necessarily expecting the happy ending. They
Yeah.
Mhm.
something more substantial
Something they can
Mm-hmm.
identify with, you know?
Yeah.
that would reflect more their
Yeah.
own, you know, and
Yeah.
so
I definitely think
you
there's
should
a
come meet
need for
these
that.
kids.
Yeah, I know. Melquea, you should go to La Casita. You'd love it.
I got to figure it out. I have to, there's so many, and it's interesting because like the stories that I'm thinking of, like I haven't experienced them. So I have to do a ton of research. You
Mhm.
know, I can't just write these stories as if, I've got the answer to everything. I have to
Right.
really do a lot
Yeah,
of
it's hard.
research.
Maybe
Yeah.
you need a little collaborator, like
Yeah, for
a
sure.
a kid
A
that
good
can help you
writer.
write. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good writer and kids, of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
Because it's like, how can I explain, like homelessness to a kid if I A, haven't been homeless, or B, don't interact with kids in that situation? Like what would
Right.
I would pretty much just ask them, what would you want
Mhm.
to tell, other kids like you and things like that. But it's one of those, like I just thought about that idea like yesterday. So it's not completely like fleshed out or thought of, but I know that like that's something that I might, if I'm going to do picture books, like of course I'm going to do the silly stuff. I'm going to do little rhyming or rhyming books, and I love magic and I love whimsy. But I think the ones that are actually like really worth telling are ones that haven't been told before in an intimate way.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
I
And
think
maybe I am, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I just think society is just changing to um in the idea of this, like we are realizing that it's just what we've done so far isn't cutting it, so to speak.
Yeah, uh-huh. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and that we, actually, I know the biggest talk in animation right now and publishing is diversity, and it's like this hot new topic,
Hmm.
and it's not really new, but it's like this hot topic, like diversity, diversity. And I
Yeah.
think that understanding like what diversity means is a big one of like, yes, we can have stories with other marginalized groups in there, but also different types of stories with marginalized groups.
Right.
A lot of like criticism
Hmm.
between, some picture books or some bits of publishing is that a lot of it's either Black trauma stories or stories that are biographical. And we could just have stories of just kids just being kids,
Yeah. It
by
doesn't
the
have to
people.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
I
And
get, I
then
get
what
it.
we, exactly. And then it's like what we can do with that also is that we just start having these stories with kids just being kids, doing their kid stuff, and then they happen to be Black. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And then we explore all the different types of intersectionality of that, of different marginalized groups. So I think that'd be really exciting because it's like the more stories that we have with, you know, um, the more stories we have with like marginalized groups, that then we get more diverse.
Oh,
Then we
Ashanti says, your best friend Ashanti says, Craig of the Creek is a great example of that.
Craig of the Creek's amazing. I love Craig of the Creek so much. And it's like, it's interesting because at first I almost passed on it because Craig he lives in Maryland, but he lives in the suburbs of Maryland. And I was like, well, that doesn't showcase all Black kids. But then I was like, well, wait a minute. Every story, somebody on Twitter, and I can't remember who they were, but they were like, we need to be more inclusive of the fact that a story cannot check off all the boxes of inclusivity and diversity.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh no, that explains why I almost passed on Craig of the Creek, because I was like, wait, it's just a story about a kid that loves the creek, that loves being outside. And then the more stories that are not even successful, but the more stories that are told, then we get more ideas and more diversity within characters of different communities too.
Hmm.
So that's one of the biggest ones that I'm trying to work on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have his little feet, nice little flat feet. And we're gonna
this looks
do,
great so far.
yay!
Does anybody have anything they want to comment or
Look at that
question or
face.
whatever? I don't want to be the only one talking, so I want to make sure I give other people an opportunity to chat.
Melquea, I'm sorry I had to step out for just a sec. What software are you using for this? This is great.
I'm using well, it's not even Paint Tool Sign. It was Clip Studio Paint Pro. They
Okay.
used to be called Manga Studio, and I love the fact that it's like it's almost like a painting. It's a painting program for me. Like I can't wrap my head around Photoshop anymore. I used to do Photoshop, and it was super duper fun. And I used to get when I was younger, I used to get all the free trials of Photoshop from like Photoshop Elements all the way to like PS6 or something like that. And
Then Creative Cloud happened.
oh God, I got so pissed off after that.
It's killed everybody.
Oh, it killed me so bad.
Yeah.
I was so upset. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So I got Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer to be
I kind of just want to keep watching you work and see where these lines end up.
I'm trying to
I
figure
know
that
these
out
are excellent.
myself.
I was gonna say little dragon here is happy in this one, so
Yeah, just enjoying themselves. Trying to figure out how I want to finalize. Yeah, I like that. Stop! Look at that little face.
He's so cute. I want to read the story when you're done.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I hope to get it traditionally published. I hope to. If not, we're gonna go the self-published route and we'll do a
I'll buy
Kickstarter. Oh, I'll do a Kickstarter just like I did the other book.
I'll
So
add it
I'll
to my collection.
see. I can figure out this. I have no idea what this other.
So what
hand's
is the actual homework assignment? I don't think we
Oh yeah.
settled on that.
Basically the homework assignment is a composition final. So it's basically where we've learned everything there is to learn about composition, how to create a dramatic, compelling image. And dramatic doesn't have to always be like the drama, but it could also be whatever like emotion you want. So it's basically like we've had we were doing like a full-on illustration, but it's going to be black and white based on a prompt. And actually I can see if I can, do I have Tex-Mex? See, let's see if I can find Tex-Mex. There we go. Open PD 11, 9 to 10, 9 to 10. Thumbnail exploration. Yeah, this was my Tex-Mex assignment, final painting, which was basically you do a final illustration based off of the word Tex, which is Texas or like Wild West, and Mex, like your giant mecha robot thing. And so this was my illustration of these rabbits hiding away from these like giant horned lizard mechs that are like tracking them down. So this is pretty much, this is my assignment. Was it homework 10?
You know what this
11?
reminds me of? Has anyone
beautiful.
seen that episode of Black Mirror with the robot dogs?
Oh man, I love.
Okay, never mind.
I knew I wanted to do robots, but I was just like, I've
This
never
is
done
excellent.
robots before. So I said,
This
let me
actually
just-
makes me think of a Pixar video I've seen. Like your style is incredible.
Oh, thank you. This was one of my. This was one of my almost breakthrough illustrations. So I was like, thank God. Oh, thank God, I'm doing.
Ashanti actually has a question. She says, would you consider yourself as an example of what kids or young adults can aspire to if they don't go down a traditional route of coming into their own as an artist and in their own respective career? I feel
Absolutely.
there's this misconception that an artist's journey is so straightforward.
It's crazy because an artist journey is not straightforward. It's not at all. Like, you know, and I think so. I think there's a few things about illustration and being an artist that it's like there's a lot of misconceptions. There's also a lot of misinformation, a lot of not even miseducation, but just lack of education. When I was wanting to figure out what I wanted to do, like I said, I want to make my own animations, voice them, and animate them. But I didn't really know what that meant, and I didn't realize how large of a project that would be. So learning the components of, like, if you're an illustrator, there are so many things that you can get into. And I can't even explain how many. If there's a piece of art on something, someone got paid to draw it. You go to the next grocery store trip and you see a can of beans or like a package of cheese and it has a picture on it, or your alcohol. Oh gosh, especially beer labels and alcohol. Someone got paid or someone got licensed.
Here we go. If
art.
anybody can see me, here's my polar seltzer can.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yeah, and someone got paid for that, and
Yeah.
so but it's a different form of illustration. It's a different place of illustration. So it's like there's so much that goes into the illustration sphere. From like for me, I had to narrow it down to I want to do children's media, so I wanted to go into picture books. You could go to the visual development side, which is basically you're designing everything that goes into a cartoon. You know, like for example, Craig of the Creek, anything that Craig wears, has, works in, lives in, sits on, has to all be designed, all of it. And you've got prop designers, which it's like, if there's a cartoon of me holding this pen, somebody has to design what this pen looks like. Or for Little Dragon, I have to design what Little Dragon's little stuffy looks like and how it reacts in gravity. What is it filled with? I was like, oh, it could be filled with like beads or beans. Therefore, it has weight when it sits down, you know, and just like, how does it swing back and forth? And how does the little stuffy, you know, overlaps little dragon's arm? So there's so many things that is in illustration that people don't realize, or no one tells them.
Right.
So yeah, so to answer the question, I definitely am not the person that graduated from a private institution or, you know, an art school. And I mean, I failed out of college, for God's sakes, and it took me a while to like grow up and really figure out, like, you know, what is it, first of all, growing up, and then second of all, figuring out what is it that I want to do. And then also taking a mentorship. Like, if it wasn't for me being mentored and like having my education, my art education being nurtured in such an amazing way, especially with other creatives like me around the world, you know, I'll probably still be trying to do all the things and getting really tired of doing all the things.
It's very easy to spread yourself too thin, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I am not the artist that has done the traditional route. I'm not anti-school, but I do feel like there's so many other alternatives to, you know, creating and living the life that you want as a professional illustrator.
Mm-hmm. Did somebody else want to say something? I thought I heard a
Well,
microphone.
hello.
Hi.
Hi, Melquea. It's Tyler from.
Oh, what's going on? I can't
No,
see
no.
anyone because I'm looking at my screen.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, no, if you mind, I'd like to weigh in, like, you know, because I went the traditional route just because I had no other kind of like way of doing it, because I think like that all starts in school and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm talking like grade school, high school, because, you know, most of the time the arts is always the first thing to go, and yet it's always funny because it's the arts that are the
That's
reason why,
everywhere.
yeah, you got everything. So it's just funny. So I um I did that too, like, you know, I was self-taught, and then I went to art school. I went to SU, and to me, I know it doesn't really, you don't really have to go to art school. To me, art school is just like, I learned how to play with different things and everything like that. Because, like, if you've never used watercolors before, you've never used oil paints and stuff like that, there's classes that, you know, that taught us. It was just college curriculum, so you had a final and everything like that, and blah 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 blah. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was just stuff like that. And after we got out, it was kind of like by like your senior year in college, they're like going, okay, now you can branch out and do what you want and fulfill, you know, go out, chase something that you like. And that was kind of like, you know, by that time everyone's kind of going, huh? Like, you learned how to do
Yeah.
art, how to do paintings, and how to do, you know, all this stuff. And then at the end they're like going, okay, now do something that you're interested in. And it's like
Yeah.
you said, being an illustrator, you know, when you call yourself an illustrator, it's because you know so many different ways of going about something in the art
Mm-hmm.
world. I mean, whether it's digital, traditional, sculpting. I mean, like, I even met a few other people who they design beer labels now, and they don't even use a traditional form. They do like paper cutouts.
Oh, that's so cool.
So someone, like, they sit down with an X-Acto knife and they cut out little pieces of paper and rearrange them into a mosaic or a picture or a painting almost, and they glue it all down and then scan it in digitally, and then that's their label. Um, but yeah, no, it's kind of like a whole universe inside of itself.
Yeah. And it's
But
Yeah.
interesting because, you know, we don't know that until we get thrust into it and we're like, oh, I
yeah,
want to be an illustrator. And it's like, oh no, there's a lot of ways to be an illustrator. What do I do?
yeah. The
Yeah.
only the cool part when I was in college was they did rope everything into like little sections. So like for classes and stuff, if you wanted to go the media route for animation, visual development, product design, then they had more traditional. If you guys are looking into editorial stuff, the stuff that you see in
Yeah.
magazines, and you learn about that and everything like that, and it all depends on how you work as an artist yourself too, because I did editorial work, and it's that's the stuff that you need to have the art done by today. Like
Yeah.
you got to have this thing ready to go to print for a magazine for the New Yorker or whatever, and they need it today.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
there's stuff like that. Then there's visual development, the stuff that will
Ah,
take 3 months to develop one character, and by that time, by that time it's like going, what did we even start on again? Oh, eight
Yeah.
characters.
I think it definitely, like school definitely, and I also was a school trained artist. I think the structure, it kind of boils down to structure, right?
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
So I think the structure was definitely good for me personally. I'm not actually a believer in college for everyone. I don't think everyone needs to
Yeah.
go to
Oh,
college.
no.
Yeah.
And that's just a personal point of view. I think we've reached a point in our society, at least American society, where it's unrealistic for everyone to go to college. People can't afford to do it. I definitely benefited from going to school, but also, and this is this is just like a personal experience. Um, this is a bit of an odd story, but my undergrad school doesn't exist anymore. So it actually closed, and a lot of
Oh.
people that I went to school with, and now I'm a photographer, but it doesn't really matter what medium. A lot of people I went to school with, I think, used the closing of the school as an excuse to say, well, I could never get a job. Okay, well, we graduated in 2012. It is now 2020. If you still don't have a job, that's on you. And I think that was kind of that's a personal thing, right? Like your own motivation, your own willingness to work, your own willingness to strive to be better and have like different out of school experiences that comes from you, and you don't need college to tell you what you should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And when
I think
go ahead, sorry.
another thing that a lot of people like, like in symposiums or whatever, people who talk about success stories never really emphasize on is the failure.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Is something that everyone needs to be told about, because we had someone who talked to us at a symposium once, and they said, you guys might not get hired on right off the bat, so please don't hold your breath as soon as you graduate. The
Mhm.
jobs are going to come to you because you're going to go looking for them. And if you don't get the job, oh well, keep working, or if you really love a project that you're doing and it gets scrapped, because a few of my teachers were like that. They had been working on a big project that was going to be a new comic, and just because the company decided to pull the plug, everything that they worked on got put in cold storage, and they never
Oh,
saw it again.
yeah.
Mhm.
The thing is, the failure bit needs to be emphasized, and you need to also understand it's not the end of the world. We just need to keep creating,
You
moving
keep
on.
going, you keep
Yeah,
going, and
as
it's
even
part
even
of
if
you.
it's your baby, even if it's your pride and joy or whatever, the project could get pulled
Yeah.
off the
Mhm.
shelf.
Oh, Shanti has another question. Before your mentorship and after your mentorship, what part of your process for illustrating has changed the most? How has the change benefited you or challenged you to rethink how you approach a new idea? P.S. This is a Shanti's ghost from beyond the grave. Okay. Apparently that's an inside joke, but So, okay. Go ahead.
With my current mentorship, I was taught that in illustration, you can design every every pixel, every paintbrush, every paint stroke is under your control. There should never, not never, but there shouldn't be accidents if you can help it, which if you're looking and if you're designing a piece, you can design every single element and have it work with your piece. And when I was given that, when I heard that, I was just like, you're crazy. But then, we went through the steps of it, and Chris Oatley is my mentor, and he pretty much showed his workflow of like painting, and he told the class like this workflow that I've learned is from animation legends, people that work in biz dev. He currently works at he used to work at Disney, then he started training, and he's still continuing to train artists, and now he has a gig at DreamWorks, which I'm so proud of him. I'm like, oh, good job, Chris.
That's amazing. That's like everyone's life goal, because I went to a technical arts school and we had illustrators, and that was everyone's goal, was to work at DreamWorks or Pixar. Like that was it. I'm
trying to figure out which one for me. At this present moment, if I'm gonna do TV animation, I'm thinking like Disney, or not Disney, Nickelodeon or
oh yes, yeah,
work, because I've been listening to their talks, and they just seem like the most inclusive, amazing studios ever, and I'm just like,
yeah. I mean, I didn't watch too much Cartoon Network growing up, but like definitely Nickelodeon for sure. I mean, like Hey Arnold was like the most revolutionary cartoon.
So
yeah, I mean, we're about the same age,
good.
so Hey Arnold was like, that was it, right? It was
so good,
so inclusive.
What did Ashanti say? Oh, so Ashanti, I was like, what did Ashanti ask? So basically my workflow has completely changed. Like I completely detonated my entire workflow, which honestly was just, my workflow honestly was just like, I have an idea for a picture. I'm going to draw this picture and I'm going to struggle through it and I'm going to hate it and hate the process and it's going to suck. And then eventually it comes out great, or eventually it doesn't. And that was pretty much my process. And every single time I did a picture, there was no set way of doing a picture. So that Tex-Mex piece I did, this one was the first time I really like took Chris's workflow, tweaked it for me, and made it happen. And it took from the idea, like the actual idea, to figuring it out, to getting the references and shooting pictures for references, getting the lighting right. I actually sculpted these characters out of clay to get the lighting correct, and I sculpted this little cactus guy, and I did so much like prep work. The entire time took about 200 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Which is insane.
That is insane.
So this piece, so now that was like workflow implementation 1. Now I'm like, I can't spend 200 hours painting one spread of a 32-page picture book. Mm-hmm. Crazy. There's not enough money in the world.
No.
In publishing, there's not enough money in the world. There's not enough time in the world. It's crazy. So now I'm thinking, I did it. I'm glad. This was great execution. Now I have to pare it down and figure out like what took so long, what didn't, how can I figure it out? So I've been tweaking my workflow a little bit, and I'm hoping that this one takes a lot less time. But right now I'm doing character design, so it's going to take a little bit longer trying to figure out, how this character moves and what their wings look like. Mm-hmm. So yeah, my workflow completely changed. I hope that it gets, and what I did was I pretty much told myself, all right, strive for good, then fast will happen. As long as I, execute and the end result is good. Because right now, all this, including classwork, it's all practice. Like when I actually get the gig and when I actually break into publishing, by the time that happens, hopefully I'll have a completely, solid workflow and I can just hit the ground running. So
Right.
yeah, it's all practice.
I do want to open the floor for any final questions because we are approaching an hour, and I know you all need to get back to your very exciting quarantine lives. So
It's mesmerizing to watch you do that.
Oh, thank you. I should do
Yes.
this more often. I haven't
Yes.
done live drawing in so long. Let's see.
I'd
I know
actually like to watch you. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. It is mesmerizing. Is all I was going to say.
I'd just like to watch you take this through the entire process. I wish you could like Procreate or something. How you could replay it.
Yeah.
That'd be
but see,
awesome.
the problem is that it won't be realistic and true to life because there's no crying involved. Especially when you're tired and you're like, I can't do this. I can't. But that's when I'm like teary-eyed and I'm like messaging Chris and messaging my classmates like, I can't do it. And then they're like, you guys got it. You'll be okay. You'll be all right.
Yeah, that's my follow-up
post.
question. Like, why isn't she crying? Why isn't this painful?
Oh,
Make it hurt.
well,
Let's see the
I'll tell you
artist
how
suffer.
painful it is. My glasses are fogging up, so that's how painful it is right now.
You know what? I'd like to see how you're drawing like you're drawing almost his skeleton before you draw over it. I'd love to see that because I can see how you're building your proportions that way.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like how, again, like for example, like this character Spike from My Little Pony, like he's just a bunch of shapes. And it's like, that's how character design works. It starts off with all these different shapes, like the eyes. And actually what I'll do is I'll do that. And like, you know, his eyes are all these like shapes. And that's what they all, you know, they're just, and this one's kind of like a tube. But what I like to do with like arms is I like to break them up because it's just easier. Like the way my arm moves is it can be it's two separate forms and then they bend and join together. And then like his little legs are just these little tubes and then his tail's like this little arrow. And that's kind of how, you know, actually with a lot of the projects that I was working on for class, like there was already a style guide and that was probably the hardest thing to like, oh, so difficult. But then I figured out it was just like me drawing and drawing and drawing. Actually, let's see if I can do a quick open.
I do have a question about that. How you just broke down that character that you mentioned had simplified forms. And I know you mentioned earlier that there's an overlap between animation and publishing.
Yes.
So regarding your process, would you say that breaking your characters down into simpler forms is going to aid you in cutting down those 200 hours?
Yes, absolutely. When I am done with the character design for Little Dragon, I want to eventually move into like using my publishing background and move that into my animation obsession. Basically, I want to do a character turnaround, which is basically like, how does this character look from behind? How does it look on the side? How does it look in 3/4? And how does this character look straight on? And use that as a way to like show both sides, like, hey, I know both of this. I know both of these things. And honestly, having more simpler characters, but also having appealing, likable characters is super helpful. Yeah, so instead of him having, you know, 7 million horns going down his back, he might just have like, or they might just have, because actually Little Dragon and Big Dragon are both genderless in the book, to keep it, I guess one of the editors suggested to keep Little Dragon and Big Dragon genderless, which is going to be kind of interesting because Big Dragon, I can also show you some of my character designs for Big Dragon if I can find it. Oh Lord, let's see if I can figure it out.
It's like my hard drive; it never ends.
Oh my gosh! And my Dropbox
It's
enormous.
a total labyrinth of files.
Big Dragon concept. There we go.
I thinking about a comment that was made a moment ago about failure, and how it's something that don't usually hear about in the process of learning and getting an education, right? I'm not sure who made that comment, but I keep thinking about these. A while back, I had, I don't know, I was listening to commencement speeches, listened to a bunch of commencement speeches, and two that I heard stayed with me because well, they were just really great speeches by two people that I really admired. One is J.K. Rowling, and the other one was Steve Jobs. And you can Google that, look it up. Both of them are about failure, about their failures, and about dealing with failure. And they're great speeches. If anybody wants to check those out.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm slowly getting used to is like failure and rejection. Because in art, for some reason, rejection is just like everywhere. Like, you know, and sometimes I'm learning to say like rejection is like hearing a no is not always just completely flat out no. It could just be not for now. And
it can also fuel you.
Yeah, for sure. I'll show them.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's right. And Cassie too. I do like her wherever she went, wherever I put her. Somewhere. That's okay. But yeah, I'm thinking this might be my final design. I'm going to tweak Little Dragon just a little bit more. I think the little two things right there and having the little horns pointing downwards. And we're going to just do a little bit of tweaking, but I think that's pretty much going to be LD's design.
This looks great.
Awesome.
And you got your homework done.
Woo! Well,
kind
I only
of.
got one part of the there is so many components that's going to go into this.
Well, you started it and you're on a roll, so you're going to be in your creative space for the rest of the evening, right?
Oh, let's hope. So we got wings, we got feet, we got horns.
We got a good job from Ashanti, so excellent. Well, if nobody has any other further questions or comments, I will say thank you to Melquea. This was amazing and very mesmerizing to watch. So the hour just kind of blew by. He's so cute. Or they are so cute. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
But thank you, everyone. For those of you that are familiar with Point of Contact or come to visit us often, we will actually be reopening on September 7th for our first fall exhibition, Rewriting History with Fabiola Jean-Louis, on the same topic of inclusivity and race and, discussions that we need to be having right now. Oh, thank you, Ashanti. This was great. And we hope to see you there. We will be by appointment only, so shoot me an email, please. I'm very responsive. We want to see your faces, even if we can't keep our door open. Sheridan has dropped our email in the chat for you. And thank you, everyone. This is fabulous. This concludes SUMART 2020. So thank you, Melquea.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.